Anime is now one of the most popular genres of movie, and lots of new anime movies are released every year all over the world. Welcoming the 2020s, it is about time we concluded the best anime movie of all time, though it should be being updated as time goes by. Today, I'm going to show you the top 10 anime movies of all time. Before the video begins, please give it a like. And if you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel. Now, let's begin. Number 10. Neo Tokyo, 1987. Released in 1987 under the original title of Many Many Labyrinth Tales, Neo Tokyo is anthology omnibus featuring shorts directed by three of the most prolific anime directors of the late 80s, Rintaro, Yoshiaki Kawajiri, and of course, Katsuhiro Otomo. The collection was later renamed by Streamline Pictures upon its re-release in 1989 to suggest a non-existent tie-in to Otomo's critically acclaimed Akira, which had seen a limited North American release that year. Rintaro's Labyrinth Labyrinthos draws inspiration from German Expressionism and the works of Salvador Dali, depicting the story of a mischievous young girl named Sachi as she and her pet cat Cicerone are drawn into a dark dimension of hallucinatory oddities through the looking glass of her mother's dresser. Yoshiaki Kawajiri's The Running Man is a grim sci-fi noir short inspired by Blade Runner, told from the perspective of a sports reporter who witnesses the final race of Zach Hugh, the fabled star of a deadly racing tournament who slowly develops deadly psionic abilities. Number 9. My Neighbor Totoro, 1988. My Neighbor Totoro is not only Miyazaki's most iconic film to date, it's also an all-but-perfect family film that manages to distill the essence of childhood whimsy down to its purest state. The film has a sort of timeless appeal about itself, disarming audiences new and old of their cynicisms and suspicions with beautiful settings, empathetic characters, and an infectious marching band theme. Set in 1958, the film follows university professor Tatsuo Kasakabe and his daughters Satsuki and Mei as they move into an old house along the countryside in order to be closer to their mother, who was recovering from a long illness. We see the world through the girl's eyes, leaping through the fields along the house, chasing skittering dust mites, and tumbling down holes in the base of trees to land safely on the bulbous stomach of a benevolent spirit animal. Number 8. Patlabor 2, 1993. Patlabor 2 is Mamoru Oshii's most formative work, an atmospheric political thriller that set the template for the aesthetic and mood that would later become his signature and distinguish the tone and substance of his most famous work, Ghost in the Shell. Set 3 years after the original, Patlabor 2 once again follows the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department's 2nd Special Vehicles Unit as they are drawn into the throes of another crisis, this time concerning a rogue military commander's plot to orchestrate a controlled state of fear and panic through which to mount a coup d'etat to overthrow the government. Where in his previous films, Oshii only flirted with political commentary that was otherwise relegated to the margins of more standard pop action plotlines, Patlabor 2 is a full-on political thriller that's low on giant robot showdowns and heavy on ambiance, emotion, and careful pacing. It's a work of consummate technical achievement, maturity, and philosophical poignance, as enduring today as it was nearly 23 years ago. It is the culmination of a master animator coming into the fullness of his creative faculties, and the spiritual preface to the film that would later go on to become his magnum opus. Number 7. Perfect Blue, 1997. Perfect Blue is a precious rarity in the genre saturation of contemporary anime, an honest-to-God psychological horror thriller brimming with malice, menace, and cinematic sophistication. Adapted from Yoshikazu Takeuchi's 1991 novel, Satoshi Kon's feature debut follows Mima Kirigoe, a singer who retires from the pop idol trio that gained her fame to pursue a career as an actress. As the pressures of her new career begin to take their toll, a string of vicious murders perpetrated by a mysterious assailant who claims to be an agent of the real Mima begins to encircle the set of her big first role. As the boundaries between her private and public life begin to blur, Mima's grip on reality begins to fray as she stumbles deeper into a tailspin of depression and madness. An avowed cinephile, the most visible influences for Kahn's work on Perfect Blue are unmistakably that of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and Jonathan Demme's The Silence of the Lambs. Dario Argento's 1977 giallo classic Suspiria is also cited by fans and critics as a possible spiritual inspiration, though Kahn himself denied having seen any of Argento's films before hearing these comparisons. Number 6. The Wind Rises, 2013. Of all of Miyazaki's most persistent tropes and motifs, there are none more consistently threaded throughout the body of work than that of the depiction of flight. So it's no surprise that The Wind Rises, his 11th and final feature film to date, would focus squarely on depicting the life of Japanese aviation engineer Jiro Horikoshi and the complicated legacy his creations relate not only to the pacifist culture identity of contemporary Japan, but also on a personal level to Miyazaki himself. A story of how a creator cannot control what their work becomes, only the dedication and craft to which they pour into the work itself. The Wind Rises is nothing short of Miyazaki's final artistic testament to humanity's paradoxical capacity for both the redemptive art of creation and dogged pursuit of self-annihilation. A film that is in no uncertain terms a conclusion, if not to Miyazaki's venerable career as one of the undisputed patriarchs of modern Japanese animation, then a thematic coda that ties together an elegant knot at the end of his venerated and storied career as a director. Number 5. Paprika, 2006. In a career of impeccable films, Paprika is arguably Kahn's greatest achievement. Adapted from the 1993 novel by Yatsutaka Tsutsui, whose other notable novel, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, would form the basis of Mamoru Hosoda's 2006 film of the same name. Kahn could not have asked for source material that better suited his thematic idiosyncrasies as a director. Paprika follows the story of Atsuko Chiba, a psychiatrist working on revolutionary psychotherapy treatment involving the DC Mini, a device that allows the user to record and navigate one's dreams in a shared simulation. By day, Atsuko maintains an unremittingly cold exterior, but by night, she moonlights as the film's titular protagonist, a vivacious dream detective who consults clients on her own terms. When a pair of DC Minis are stolen and loosed upon the world, causing a stream of havoc which manifests the collective unconsciousness into the waking world, it's up to Paprika and her colleagues to save the day. The summation of Kahn's decade-long career as a director, Paprika is a cinematic trompe-l'oeil of psychedelic colors and exquisite animation. Number 4. Ghost in the Shell, 1995. It's difficult to overstate how enormous of an influence Ghost in the Shell exerts over not only the cultural and aesthetic evolution of Japanese animation, but over the shape of science fiction cinema as a whole in the 21st century. Adapted from Masamune Shirow's original 1989 manga, the film is set in the mid-21st century, a world populated by cyborgs in artificial prosthetic bodies in the fictional Japanese metropolis of Nihama. Ghost in the Shell follows the story of Major Motoko Kusanagi, the commander of a domestic special ops task force known as Public Security Section 9, who begins to question the nature of her own humanity surrounded by a world of artificiality. When Motoko and her team are assigned to apprehend the mysterious Puppet Master, an elusive hacker thought to be one of the most dangerous criminals on the planet, they are set chasing after a series of crimes perpetrated by the Puppet Master's unwitting pawns before the seemingly unrelated events coalesce into a pattern that circles back to one person, the Major herself. Number 3. Grave of the Fireflies, 1988. Isao Takahata's Grave of the Fireflies is the harrowing story of two children whose lives are left devastated by the 1945 firebombing of Kobe. Adapted from the autobiographical story of Akiyuki Nosaka, the film follows Seita, a young Japanese boy forced to care for his younger sister Setsuko, in the wake of a devastating Allied attack that leaves his hometown in ruins. To describe the sum of their tragedies as horrifying feels like a gross understatement. The horror of Grave of the Fireflies is not reliant on brooding over callous acts of violence or fixating on the macabre, but rather on the heart-wrenching futility of Seita and Setsuko trying desperately to cling to some shred of normalcy in a world devoid of peace and security. Whether it's the scene of Seta setting eyes on his mother for the first time after the firebombing, or Setsuko inadvertently stumbling across a corpse while playing at the beach, the film raises these children's hopes of escaping a living hell on Earth as quickly as it dashes them. Number 2. Spirited Away, 2001. What is it about Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away that makes it one of his greatest, if not the greatest, films he has ever made? Perhaps it's because the film represents the best expression of his most defining themes and concepts to date. The strength and perseverance of a young woman, the rapturous glory of flight, the spiritual struggle of personal and cultural amnesia within Japanese society, the redeeming power of love. Or maybe it has something to do with the crux of the film's story being so archetypically identifiable. Not so much a modern reimagining as it is a spiritual evocation of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, a childhood odyssey in a world that feels both familiar and foreign at the same time. Whatever the case, there is nothing quite like watching Spirited Away for the first time. The image of Chihiro, having discovered her parents transformed into pigs, running frantically through the streets as the town surrounding her comes to life as lights flicker into existence and spirits rise up from the earth, is nothing short of magical. Number 1. Akira, 1988. The sum total of anime cinema from the early 90s to present day is marked by the precedent of Katsuhiro Otomo's Akira. Adapted from the early chapters of Otomo's landmark manga series, Akira was the most expensive animated film of its time and cinematic benchmark that sent shockwaves throughout the industry. Set 31 years after World War III was sparked by a massive explosion that engulfed the city of Tokyo, Akira is set in the sprawling metropolis of Neo-Tokyo, built on the ruins of the former and teetering precariously on the cusp of social upheaval. The film follows the stories of Kaneda Shotaro and Tetsuo Shima, two members of a youth motorcycle gang whose lives are irrevocably changed one fateful night on the outskirts of the city. Thank you for watching, and please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and enable post alerts to view more of our future videos. After saying that, keep watching our videos, and I'll speak with you in the next one.